I'm actually going to step away from thinking like a geographer for a second and direct this question specifically to Dr. Winson. When you talked about the non-elite food environment, I specifically thought of ethnic foods, and I know that ethnicity really implies a sort of stubbornness. At the same time, what is tradition isn't always right. But how would you address sustainability to a community that might not be so receptive to it?
Why, okay, well, if you could give me a more concrete example of why a certain group or whatever and their diet is not...
Just because, just because I guess with immigration and stuff like that, it's food is one of the areas of retaining an ethnic identity.
Yeah.
Therefore, substitution implies that you're stepping away from having that ethnic identity.
Oh, I see.
And sustainability implies that, yes, there is a compromise, and that compromise must be made by everyone. But at the same time...
Why does it mean giving up your traditional diet? Is that what you're saying? Or implying or whatever? I don't know if it need to. There's some neat, coming back to Toronto example, I was talking to a fellow, we were sitting in Pennsylvania, and he was sitting next to me, and we started talking, and he's in charge of a project that is really trying to grow foods, culturally appropriate foods in the Toronto area, or not immediately in Toronto, but close enough so they can come in, you know, without being a great burden to an environment or whatever. And having some success, I think, in doing that. So that instead of asking people to give up those foods, which may be not a good idea if those foods are healthy and they're healthier than the worst of flying down the street at Tim Hortons or whatever, then you don't want them to do that. And so, you know, you might want to encourage people to retain their traditional diets and see to what extent you can substitute their production, you know, as happening in some other part of the world far away with local production. But on the other hand, you've got the issue of how much are you hurting employment in vulnerable regions if you do that. I guess that's, you know, there's different, it's a complex issue. But I think you certainly could substitute a lot of it. And you know, traditional diets, say you're talking about an Asian diet or whatever, in a lot of respects seems a lot healthier than what I call the American diet, that, you know, is the mainstream dominant diet in North America. And there's a lot of evidence to, you know, indicate that it doesn't go with a whole host of chronic disease that the American diet is promoting. So I wouldn't, I don't know if that's a problem.
Okay. Just because I've worked in quite a few years in a lot of different ethnic kitchens, and when I propose that question to one of the chefs, and they seem to just poo-poo that entirely.
Recently, we just went online after the conference, and there's a picture. It was a picture of Michelangelo's David, but it was a picture after he had been in North America for 2 years. Questions over here? Yeah.
It sounds like we're mostly talking about almost North American or European cities, and I kind of want to hear your perspective on other cities in other, you know, other countries or other continents for that matter. For instance, in South America, there's been in the past, or I mean, I guess in South America and in Mexico, there have been societies in the past that they've had such large cities that they've already kind of gone through this crisis thousands and thousands of years ago. Those were predominantly related back to food issues and other related issues, but is there other places that we should be looking at? Are there things in the past, or are there things in other countries that we can maybe model ourselves after? Because sometimes we do need something to look forward to, or we need to look to a certain particular model. So what's your opinion on other countries and maybe in the past as well?
Anybody wants to kind of speak on that question?
I can say some general things. Cities of the past, Roman and Greek cities had a terrible time just sustaining themselves in a very simple manner, never mind being sustainable. Romans regularly suffered from food crises that threatened the very existence of Rome herself on any number of occasions. And I certainly think the cities of Mesopotamia, going back to the origin of cities, again, existed in a very exploitive and unsustainable relationship with their hinterlands. And only vaguely do I remember examples of how various ancient cities sort of teetered on the edge of not existing because their linkages with their hinterland were unsustainable, and therefore the cities themselves had real just pure existence issues, but also just they couldn't remain as they were doing the things that they were. So I don't think it's a new question. I think it's a question that civilizations have struggled with, for 4,000 years.
Thank you for the question, and thanks for the answer. The rest of us aren't brave enough to try to tackle it.
So, you guys are representatives of a multiplicity of disciplines, and I'm curious from an academic viewpoint, what do you view then as your role towards engaging future students in sustainability? And to this end, I'm thinking along the lines of if a common definition of sustainability could be developed, do you feel that strongly enough that that should be included into core curriculum in a post-secondary setting? So I'm going to ask it to everyone, but...
Sure, we'll let everyone answer as long as you quick. Quick answer in the question, folks. Do you want to start with Karen?
Sure. I teach landscape architecture, and I would argue it's a profession that has always thought about sustainability. They may not put that word to it, but it's always been about how we live in nature, and people who practice it don't necessarily follow through, which is always disappointing, and it's a difficult thing to do. The difficulty too is what is sustainable? How do you answer that? And we started with do I know, or do any of us know what is sustainable? If we knew that, we wouldn't be here. But I have a pretty good idea about what's not sustainable, and so I see my role as teaching as more of a coaching role. Suddenly my students, our lives are parallel for a while, and they go off and I go on. And I can offer what I know and coach them in how they perceive their day-to-day work and how they perceive what is sustainable and what isn't, and to at least have them thinking about that. I may not have the answer, but we're trying to answer.
Thanks. And anyone else want to tackle Colin's challenging all those we can last.
Historically, I think engineering has been one of those fields where we generally didn't worry about things like that in the past. Historically, engineers liked their problems and not thinking about the externalities, the implications, and so forth. I mean, the classic, jokes like civil engineers build targets and mechanical engineers build the things that take them out. But there is some recognition that even in fields like engineering, which historically is sort of a very technically focused, solve this issue, there is more of a need to understand systems, more of a need to be able to think outside that box of your discipline. And so I think I sort of view it as teaching that is sort of just trying to provide opportunities to the students to remind them essentially there is a broader world out there, there are broader issues, and try and relate those back to what they're doing. So almost like empowerment, as it were. You can do more than just solve a little set of equations. You can take this knowledge you have with appropriate consideration and really do something with it, involving people, involving society.